Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande, Jai Mishikad, Paramahamsa, Pri Vrajagacharya Stotara Satya, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace. Shirabai Charanarvin Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Skandibiti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Samavata Bhakta Vrinda ki Harinam Sankirtan ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jainitai Gaur Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanditam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prageshabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhaviti Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and the loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Shakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Siva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Namukam Karoti Vasalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yatkripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our morning Bhagavatam class. We are continuing from Canto number 1, chapter 17, entitled Punishment and Reward of Kali. Today is 25. 5? Yes. Yeah. Idanim Dharma Padas Te Satyam Nirvartayad Yattaha Tam Jigrikshati Adharmo Yam Anritenaiditaha Kalihi Idanim Dharma Padaste Satyam Nirvartayat Yataha Tam Jigrikshati Dharmoyam Anrite Naidita Kalihi Idanim Dharma Padaste Satyam Nirvatayat Yataha Tam Jigrikshati Dharmoyam Anrite Naidita Kalihi Idanim Dharma Padaste Satyam Nirvartayat Yataha Tam Jigrikshati Dharmoyam Anrite Naidita Kalihi Idanim Dharma Padaste Satyam Nirvartayat Yataha Tam Jigrikshati Dharmoyam Anrite Naidita Kalihi
Idanim Dharma Padaste Satyam Nirvartayedataha
Satyam Nirvartayat Yataha Tam Jigrikshati Dharmoyam
Anrite Naidita Kalihi
Anrite Naidita Kalihi Idanim Dharma Padaste Satyam Nirvartayat Yataha Tam Jigrikshati Dharmoyam Anrite Naidita Kalihi Idanim at the present moment Dharma, O personality of religion, Padaha, leg, Te, of you, Satyam, truthfulness, Nirvartayat, hobbling along somehow or other. Yattaha, whereby, tam, that, jigrikshati, trying to destroy, adharmaha, the personality of religion, ayam, this, andritena, by deceit, editaha, flourishing, kalihi, quarrel personified. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you're somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. Kindly repeat after me. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. Purport. The principles of religion do not stand on some dogmas or man-made formulas, but they stand on four primary regulative observances, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The mass of people must be taught to practice these principles from childhood. Austerity means to accept voluntarily things which may not be very comfortable for the body, but are conducive for spiritual realization. For example, fasting. Fasting twice or 4 times a month is a sort of austerity which may be voluntarily accepted for spiritual realization only, and not for any other purposes, political or otherwise. Fastings which are meant for not for self-realization but for some other purposes are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 17:5 and 6. Similarly, cleanliness is necessary both for the mind and for the body. Simply bodily cleanliness may help to some extent, but cleanliness of the mind is necessary, and it is effected by glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. A godless civilization cannot cleanse the mind because it has no idea of God. And for this simple reason, people under such a civilization cannot have good qualifications, however they may be materially equipped. We have to see things by their resultant action. The resultant action of human civilization in the age of Kali is dissatisfaction. So everyone is anxious to get peace of mind. This peace of mind was complete in this such age because of the existence of the above mentioned attributes of the human beings. Gradually, these attributes have diminished in the Trita Yuga to 3/4, in the Dwapara to half, and in this age of Kali to 1/4, which is also gradually diminishing on account of prevailing untruthfulness. By pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. And by too much lying propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled. The revival of Bhagavad Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all description. Translation again. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. So yesterday's verse was directly speaking on the 4 pillars of Dharma. Satyam, Daya, Tapa, Socham. They are referred to here, of course, as well. And this is the special characteristic of the age of Kali, that practically all of these qualities, which are an indication of the eternal principles of Dharma, are unknown or totally rejected, not at all being followed. Not being followed. Prabhupada points out how these are eternal principles of Dharma. Very important to understand this point because generally people equate Dharma with religion, which is something that Prabhupada very nicely explained and pointed out. The basic difference. Religion can change, religion can be manipulated in different ways, but the principles of Dharma, and we can say that actually in many ways this is what is attractive to the Vedic, what we call the Vedic culture, because it is based, once we understand and once we accept these eternal principles, there are many such principles, the whole system of like the modes of material nature. I mean, people who have no access to Bhagavad Gita or who have not had that good fortune, they don't even know that such a thing exists. As the modes, we take it for granted to some extent, but the modes of material nature is one of the basic tattvas or realities of life, and it's an eternal reality. Similarly, the whole system of varna and ashrama is an eternal reality, because these modes of material nature are intimately connected with Prakriti. So, in other words, Vedic culture is uh, is giving us very scientific, we could say, what is meant to be unchangeable uh, laws of nature. And in many ways, they are quite clear and simple. Maybe not so simple to apply, but actually they're simple to understand. And if we follow the good guidelines and recommendations that are given in the Shastra by the Acharyas, then although, and that is what is being explained here, uh, in the age of Kali, in which we're living now, it's extremely difficult. It's a major challenge for all of us. We have two challenges. The first challenge is for ourselves to come up to the standard. And the second challenge is to bring the whole society, which is, both are major challenges because of the heavily, as Prabhupada would refer, the heavily polluted atmosphere in which we're living. And of course, this brings up a point that we often refer to, which is also scientific and very logical. Therefore, the need for people who, well, for devotees, those who are having some understanding of these principles of Dharma, to really live together and to establish communities where they can be more protected. When we study, for example, and we don't sufficiently do that, when we systematically study the whole Vedic system of, for example, villages. Villages are that ideal community setting which actually protects individuals, because, for example, even to this day, in a place like Bali in Indonesia, it's quite interesting that you cannot live in a village, you cannot be part of a village unless you agree to actually attend all of the religious and cultural festivals that are there. It's just like we have a system in our society that you can't live in a temple unless you follow these four principles. Or you can't live in a temple for too long if you too often miss Mangalarti. Isn't it? I mean, there are, we are supporting, we are praising, we are endeavoring to establish what is called ashram. The whole Vedic culture is based on ashram. From the first to the last phase of life is ashram. Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, Sannyas ashram. So that's very interesting, and that Vedic culture makes it very clear that from the beginning of life till the end, we're supposed to develop and live within ashram. And ashram means, of course, main focus is on becoming, self-realized, which means that looking on the large scale, which is, initially Prabhupada was, different devotees have analyzed the different developments, different phases, we could say, of Srila Prabhupada's emphasis or preaching. And I think everyone will agree that initially Prabhupada was just focused on creating brahmanas. He was trying to attract people who could become a little bit serious and take up, live in a temple, follow these principles, and then become preachers uh, in different ways. Of course, that remains an important aspect, but then Prabhupada kind of like um, broadened that vision, so to speak, by emphasizing more, maybe not more, but by including and emphasizing also the importance of creating communities, of establishing varnashrama. In many ways, establishing varnashrama means reintroducing, reestablishing village life, community life, because Vedic culture uh, is agrarian-based culture, uh, and which means automatically the presence of cows, which is a whole, in modern day society, who thinks about cows? You know, ordinary people. Uh, they only know, most people don't even, I'm sure some people live their whole life without coming in contact with cows, without seeing a cow, without touching a cow, without hearing the moo of a cow. But Vedic culture is like unthinkable. It is unthinkable to live without cows. Uh, it is unthinkable to be disconnected with, with the cows, with the land. Of course, there are people who live, who can live, who are meant to live in cities. But even in cities, like in Bangkok, one of our devotees, one of my godbrothers, actually was living in Bangkok, I think still living there. He was living near the king's palace. And because he was living near the king's palace, and within the king's palace there were cows, he was getting milk from the king's cows. That was an advantage of those living close to the king's palace, because I guess he had excess milk and he was selling it, whatever. But in other words, for us to address and let's say bring about the changes that are needed, otherwise we just completely become overwhelmed by the influence of Kali. One of the, I would say, very fundamental ways is for bringing back what is that social arrangement, that social system. Means villages. Villages are extremely important. Villages are essential, and we seem to have in modern day society, it's actually described like that. When you read some of the descriptions, they say that people used to live in villages. Now we're advanced. Now we live in cities, as if we don't need villages, as if we don't need to produce food in the more simple and natural way, etc. So one of our programs, as we know within the society, someone sent me yesterday, in New Mayapur, La Nouvelle Mayapur in France, outside the city of France, some distance. One devotee is happening in a few other places also, which is a good sign, is using oxen, to plow and to look after the fields. And it's so attractive, it's so pleasing to see. And actually, there's he got two young oxen last year, and now they're grown up, and he trained them up, and now they're actually, in the field. So there's Prabhupada actually introduced, and we are meant to continue promoting this, you could say, revival of these these principles. Although, austerity, we were discussing yesterday, nobody likes to even hear the word austerity. Generally, people don't like austerity, don't like, we live in a so-called free world. Some words are just not at all popular, like discipline, celibacy, because people have become practically totally immoral. They just, there's so much on the bodily platform, animalistic platform. So Prabhupada therefore made one statement, I'm sure he made it many times, but Vedic culture is to bring people from animal consciousness to human consciousness, and then from human consciousness to spiritual consciousness. Yeah. First we have to learn to be human. Then once we learn the basics of humanity, then we understand the need, the importance of rising to the mode of goodness, and then beyond. That's only possible when we come in contact with spiritual teachings. So this is very much, so many, lately I've been, somehow there have been more individuals speaking out on Varnashram, I would say positively, which is a refreshing. There's still a long way to go, but there's been, interviews and there's books and things like this, quite recent, and it's quite interesting because it's such a big subject matter, and of course Prabhupada spoke quite extensively about it. But it's interesting to see how there are so many different, I suppose it's natural, many angles. One of my godbrothers, I can mention his name because he wrote a book recently, which I'll be getting soon. He's sending me a copy, called The Perfect Society. His name is Dayananda. He joined in 1967. That goes back quite some. Huh? Dayananda, yeah. He is now Vanaprastha, wearing saffron as Vanaprastha. And he wrote two interesting books, which I've not read yet. One is called The Solution. And the other one is The Perfect Society. So actually, the solution is the perfect society in terms of what is described in the Shastra, because he was explaining, I was hearing his interview just a few days ago, he was explaining that he chose that title, The Perfect Society, for his book, because that title comes twice in the 7th canto, chapter 11 and chapter 12. The Perfect Society for social divisions, the Perfect Society for spiritual divisions. Yeah, the Perfect Society, the Varnas, and the Perfect Society, the Ashramas. I mean, it's he has many wonderful realizations about Varnashrama, and he also is praising, naturally, Srila Prabhupada for giving this solution. I mean, Krishna, in other words, Krishna consciousness is of course based on the chanting of the holy name, the Sankirtan movement, but the Sankirtan movement, like Sankirtan, the very word Sankirtan means congregation. So congregation is not only, in the early days, once a day we would go out and perform Sankirtan, congregational chanting. Now it's maybe once a week, if at all, or once a month or whatever. But Sankirtan also means living in congregation, means community. It also includes that, because once a week coming together and chanting Hare Krishna is nice, but the rest of the week we're just like not having the proper
Struggling.
Yeah. And therefore, when we live in a community of devotees, I mean, I see that in some communities there's a vast difference in terms of, the consciousness and the atmosphere that is prevailing there. And of course, it's a topic that some devotees have talked about since many years, and are still hopeful that it can happen. It will happen, but it needs to happen on the on a large scale, actually, and because that's one of the ways to counter this very heavy, persistent influence of Kali, by by protecting ourselves. It's a form of protection. Living together in ashram, we're protected. Like when I was younger sometimes, I had the good fortune and opportunity to live in a Christian Gurukula. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a Christian Gurukula seminary. And and because of that, I was protected, from so many bad influences that are there. So Prabhupada makes that point also, that at the youngest age as possible, as early as possible in life, and that is, of course, one of the features of the Vedic culture, one should be protected. One should be given that knowledge. One should be given that good association. Then there is good possibility one will, be able to overcome the very negative influences of Kali Yuga. And just one last small point before we get some of our devotees to share some thoughts or ideas on this. Someone sent a small, I suppose we all get bits and pieces here and there. There's a group of devotees in Hare Krishna. That's the first time this happened. Group of devotees in North America. I think they're connected with Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. They have to be. They made one of those, they call shorts or whatever, small documentary, and mentioning how they're starting a community. We're a group of 20 monks here, but we need more people who are in Georgia. Right, because that's where they have their base. Yeah, so they're going for it, which is good, actually. I mean, it's happening in different places, but they it's like in the early days, when the movement started, people were all young. Most of the devotees were very young, and when we are young, we have more enthusiasm and idealism and whatnot, passion. So it's nice to see that a good group of devotees are intent on doing that, and somehow we need to convince more young people, especially because they're the ones who can do things physically and otherwise as well. So I would say that, well, it comes out actually in the various purports of the Bhagavatam, that creating communities or creating communities, the whole hippie movement was about creating communes, 98% of which failed. Isn't it? Statistics are there. Over 90% of the communes, it was a term in the 70s, I guess, where it was part of the hippie movement. They wanted to bring changes, and the idea was good to be together, to live together, but because somehow they missed these 4 rules and regulations. So it means that we can only create successful communities if we have individuals who are understanding the need to be regulated, isn't it?
And follow, strictly follow.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's just like a nice dream that becomes very quickly shattered and disappears like that. Voila. So how to create communities?
I mean, one quick thing came in my mind when you said that the children from the young age should be
Yes.
protected from this whole influence. And in your own example, you got that protection, which as a result you can see, I mean, all these things are actually the part of the character
Yeah.
and development of the personality.
Yeah.
On the contrary, now children are exposed to so many things which are actually, they give them trauma. Then after that they go to psychologist and
Yeah.
then spend, a lot of money because
Yeah.
the whole world is kind of becoming um, in such a way that the most vulnerable society,
Yes.
I mean part of the society, is going to be affected, and then it means that the future is
Yes. Yes.
going in dark.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why, especially devotee community should be more cautious is just to protect the future generation.
Yes. Yes.
The first thing,
Yes. To protect and to create, actually.
create, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
First protect, then allow them to become good citizens.
Yes. Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was just some time back. One of the prominent sadhus made some comments on that so much of girls are mixing, which is mentioned by Srila Prabhupada, that cleanliness gets,
Co-education.
yeah, I mean, you get polluted too much of
Yeah. Yeah.
association. So someone made, I mean, one of the sadhus or couple of them made a comment that it's not recommended that people should have, girls should have free access and they should have so much of interaction,
Right.
free
Right.
interaction.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And then somebody from outside, taking a flag for ladies.
Uh-huh.
How can you restrict?
With-
How can you make some such comments?
Right.
It is completely kind of abuse and it is restricting.
Yes. Yes. Which is going totally against the modern trend.
Right.
And yeah, that's yeah. People cannot understand. Have great difficulty understanding, which is one aspect often mentioned in the Bhagavatam and by Srila Prabhupada, how there is a plan and built-in restriction between men and women in the Vedic culture. And unless one knows what the goal of life is, one will not be able to understand or to accept why that restriction is there. Because as we were discussing earlier, in modern day society, people don't like restrictions. And by nature, I suppose, all of us don't like to be restricted. But we restrict a child, for example, to have access to certain things that will be putting him in danger or whatever. So that requires proper training, proper education, which is totally lacking in modern day society, and therefore we've allowed this promiscuity. It's been ongoing now for over a century or more, and therefore people, will immediately protest, as you give in this example. If somebody, you know, uh, attempts to tell the truth of what it is, then the people will object. People will object. Um, yeah, yeah.
So yesterday there was an article on CNN. A pastor in the state of Idaho.
Uh,
He also is trying for many years to establish such communities. He's Christian
okay.
pastor, but again on the same principles. Traditional roles of man and women,
Uh-huh.
intermingling. And he wants to establish that community. He says there should no democracy. It should be all based on theocracy.
Okay.
It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting to read some of the things over there.
Uh-huh.
With the idea to allow other religions to coexist also. Pretty interesting.
Okay.
And he's expanding. He has one church and now it's a small town called Moscow in the state of Idaho.
Okay.
But then his churches have expanded to other states. Now he has some support from government also, like the defense secretary.
So they're promoting this idea of community or separation of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Traditional rules of man.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, it used to be. We go back maybe 1 century.
Yeah.
I was pointing out how if you Google now, if you try to find out how many men's colleges and women's colleges there are in America, there's the last time I did the search, there were only 3 men's college in the whole of U.S. and maybe 30 or 40 women's college. It means that previously, 100 years ago, there were. That's all you had basically. I mean, education was separate for the boys and separate for the girls.
And there's grooming school for women, like how you can be a good mother.
Yes.
That's all they train them.
Yeah, correct. Yes, correct. Yeah, there was that. That was the education.
That was the education.
That was the curriculum, kind of.
And even in public universities, I went to for my master's at Arizona State University. I was going to the old archives of the pictures when Teddy Roosevelt visited in the earlier part of the 20th century to inaugurate the Hoover Dam, and he visited the Arizona State University. The old archive showed he's addressing all the men are on the left, the women are on the right. The men are dressed in their suits and hats, and the women in full gown. I'm like, you can't imagine.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, there's been a dramatic change because of this so-called progressive way of thinking in terms of false conceptions of equality, actually, which is a touchy subject matter.
Was it because of the church that people were still following, and then because the church, as you mentioned earlier also, the governing and the church, they became separate, and then was that the reason why? Because people had been following those cultural norms, and then
yes, and there still are some, like some special communities like the Amish and the Quakers and the right. There are different groups, but yeah, the whole change, social change, and ideological change as well, is very directly connected, intimately connected with the this rebellion we call the French Revolution that took place, where the because of corruption within within the church and within general society, there's corruption in terms of leadership in the church, and corruption, because in those days, let's say 200 years ago, we had monarchy was still there.
Right.
That was the norm. But the kings were abusing their position, and the church leaders as well, and therefore there was a whole revolt, rejecting both, and then introducing this whole modern ideology that we only accept as truth what we can see. And so the whole modern way of thinking, and therefore there was automatic, basically, rejection of authority. We become our own.
How to check that in societies like our international society, Krishna consciousness? How to check that? Because you pointed out it's very important thing that due to corruption it happened. And naturally, when corruption is there, means abuse of power.
Yes.
And authority. If people naturally will rebel.
Yes.
That's I mean, any revolution is a reason.
Correct.
That's the outcome.
Yes.
So how to check that? Because we are seeing the same thing that.
Yeah, we have the same kind of challenge. Varnashram College means educating and training people who will actually be in qualified as leaders, and then you need to introduce check and balances systems also, because power and money tend to corrupt even people who might, so there are dangers.
Maharaj, I was in the 10th canto when the Golden Leela is described. At one particular occasion, Krishna mentions in his conversation with Nanda Maharaj that he compares like men who don't follow their varna duties to be like unchaste women.
Yes.
So, and then on that aspect, when I was trying to study this a little bit more in detail and research, if you look at the history of past 200 years, what has happened is that men have given up their varna duties.
Yep.
And that has been then again the driver for women to give up their traditional roles. And again, automation has been a big part of it, because if you see, men moved from their traditional roles, that's one thing, but they also moved to more like desk jobs or jobs which are supported by machines.
Yes.
And which is giving up the principle of austerity. And when you do that, everyone's like, hey, I can do that too.
Yes.
You can flip a switch and operate a machine.
Correct.
You can do a desk job, I can do that too. And so all this technological advancements, of easy availability of the, what do you call, forgetting the term, but so the sexual modes change when you have contraceptives, right?
Yes.
Easy access to that. So all those were contributing to the fact of changing the roles. And even if you see like America, if you look at the history, the reason why, like slavery, again, it's a controversial thing, but the abolishment was in the northern states, because those are the states which are industrialized.
Okay.
Right? Because without machines,
Yes.
it's this could have never happened. In one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada said that the slavery always has been existed for millions of years.
Right.
And will continue. Now there is two aspects to it. There's one is abuse, but then there is also within the Varnashram society where the slaves are taken care of, but then they are provided accommodation, they are provided shelter, they're not abused, but then there's a different relationship.
Yes. The subject matter is quite interesting. Definitely, so-called industrialization and advancement has had a lot of we glorify so many wonderful things that have been accomplished due to industrialization, but we tend to not look at all of the negative side effects which have contributed to where we are nowadays. Things physically have become too easy, and people are physically much less healthy than before, because people don't walk nowadays. They just go by machine, you can buy car, etc. like that. So yes, therefore, in so many ways, to address the problems that are at hand, creating and establishing communities, because it's a fundamental aspect, very fundamental. We could say it's part of the pillar of Vedic culture, to have relatively small communities, as opposed to now, big cities, which are very complex and very difficult to organize and to give protection to people, etc. Villages were simplified; they had basic systems in place, and wherever there were qualified leaders, then the citizens, the residents, were properly cared for and protected, etc. Yeah. Okay. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Sri Prabhupada ki. Yes. Hare Krishna. Jai. Send us occasional pictures.